Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady. And let's start with a little story to warm up. I don't work here, and no, I will not come into work. Last holiday season, I worked seasonally for Target. It was a disaster from the start. The managers had absolutely no organization whatsoever. I should have known when they scheduled me for my second interview, and the manager didn't even show up. I was screwed. Towards the end of the holiday season, after Christmas and before New Year's, they offered me a non-seasonal part-time position. I was going to accept, but they wanted me to work a ton for part-time, and being a college student, they were not willing to be flexible at all. So I said, nope, I'm done after my last day, January 6th. Everything was good after I was done with that train wreck, and I was starting off my second semester, January 20th at 5 p.m., I get a call from Target. Manager, hey, this is blank. Are you running a little late? You were supposed to be at work at 4:30. Me, no, I quit over 3 weeks ago. Manager, well, we're really short-staffed. Can you come in anyway? Me, no, I don't work there anymore. I told you, and I'm at school. Manager, are you sure you can't come in anyway? Thank goodness I'm done with that disaster, and since the holiday season is coming up, I got a job at a different place, thank goodness. They're going to call you again this year. You're already on the schedule. And our second story. No, my private number isn't the 24-hour helpline for a company I've never worked at, even if you paid them extra to include it in your service agreement. So this is a long one. It took over a decade in reality, too, so I'll introduce the cast as they appear. About 20 years ago, I got a new job. Turned all keen and excited, and one of my first tasks is to fix someone else's comprehensive F-up as quickly and quietly as possible. I seem to have made a career out of that. My new employer, hereafter known as XYZ Inc., made various kinds of industrial machines for different parts of a particular industry, and there's one sitting on the shop floor now that's almost finished, but has a subsystem that just doesn't work. They've done plenty of machines with that feature before, but this one is different because the sales rep has managed to get the customer to pay tens of thousands extra for the option of X part having its own independent drive system instead of a mechanical one coupled to the rest of the machine. No real point in doing that, but the same is true for metallic paint on your car, and if the customer wants it, let them pay for it. XYZ Inc. have never actually built one of these things with a separate X drive before, so the guys who added it to the option list, we'll call them Clown and Clown's boss, Senior Clown, has spent the last 6 months D'ing around trying to build one. So there are now 2 weeks left before delivery, and they've blown through the budget long ago. So I'm called into my new boss's office along with the two clowns and told that the single most important thing this week and next is to make it work. We hired you knowing you're an expert in Y technology. True. So that should be fine. Sure, I'll make it a top priority and get right on it. Senior Clown assures me that it's basically good to go, just needs some fine-tuning. So I look at the machine. There is zero possibility that what they've done can ever be made to work. Literally, nothing is salvageable. I can't go into the technicalities without giving clues to the industry and the identities of the guilty, but for a non-technical analogy, imagine someone is tasked with making an omelet, and they decide to do it by mixing breakfast cereal with beer and setting it on fire. For some reason, that doesn't work, so they get a different cereal and a more expensive beer and set fire to that. Rinse and repeat for 6 months while assuring the higher-ups and end customer that the build is going well. Honestly, their solution needed to break the laws of physics to even come close to working, and was basically an exercise in filling the scrap bin. So I report this as tactfully as possible to new boss, causing Senior Clown to hate me with the fire of 1,000 suns. I quickly learned he hated being called out. Clown was actually a lot more chill, just utterly hopeless at 90% of his job. What Senior Clown thought they were going to do was meet the delivery date without having someone else build a working one. I never found out. Fix it, says new boss. The machine has to ship on XX day at the latest. Buy whatever you need, just make it work. So I did. Completely re-engineered the mechanical and electrical system and programmed the extra control gear from scratch in 2 weeks. No time to experiment and optimize, so I went with parts from suppliers I was 100% familiar with and built in plenty of spare capacity if there was any doubt. For example, there was a component where I could use a product range that I knew well, but it wasn't suitable for the chemical environment on that machine, or I could try a new similar product that was chemical proof, but that I hadn't used before. 10 days to go, you said? I used the older type and put them in chemical proof boxes. Takes a bit more space, but I can spec the stuff in confidence and move on. The thing was done and worked okay, and off it goes to the customer on the due date. After that, the separate drive was taken off the options list because Senior Clown wasn't going to use my system, even though it was just a case of ordering duplicate parts and following the build manual I'd written as I went. And they knew the Clown Tech version wouldn't work. Scan forward about 3 years, and XYZ Inc. was taken over by someone else and merged into another firm. New management decides that a couple of market segments aren't things they want to be doing anymore, including this type of machine, and get out of the business. All this is above board, and the customers are kept informed. It all takes a year or so. In the general rearrangement, Clown gets a new job somewhere else, and Senior Clown takes a cushy early retirement deal. XYZ Inc. also used to service these machines at the customer sites, something that was needed every 6 months or so. So they sold the rights to do this to one of the sales reps who's also taking early retirement. Yes, the same one who originally sold this machine. Ex-sales rep gets all the documentation, parts at wholesale rate or free, and manpower help for the first 12 months or so. I understand he also took on Senior Clown as a consultant because he'd been in charge of building the things for all those years. But that was a deal between them. Life moves on, another few years. I also leave XYZ Inc. I'm on reasonable terms, so I work 3 months' notice to hand over properly, and for a few months afterwards, get the occasional email from ex-colleagues wanting to pick my brain. After that, it's purely social stuff for big number birthdays or retirements, major drinking sessions, or whatever. Something else I should mention is that for my entire time at XYZ Inc., I had 2 mobile phones. A work one paid for by XYZ Inc. that was used only for business and was given back when I left, and my own personal one which kept the same number before, during, and after, and that never ever got used for business. HR had my private one listed in my file for emergencies or whatever, but that was it. So about 5 years after I'd left XYZ Inc., I get a phone call. 7 a.m. Sunday morning, after a big night out with lots of beer, because how could it be any other way? The guy on the other end knows my name, and while very insistent, is also 100% polite. So I let it play out while I wake up enough to understand what's happening. This bloke is the plant manager for the customer who bought that particular machine a dozen years ago and has a big problem. These machines have to run several hours every day, unless they're being serviced, and then you need to plan around that well in advance, including subcontracting work to competitors if necessary. And it isn't working today because something has gone wrong and or worn out in the system I engineered. The system is fundamental to the machine, so it isn't running, staff are standing around, product can't be made, and they're losing a couple of $1,000 an hour. If it isn't running tomorrow, material will start to go to waste, and they'll be at risk of losing major contracts. Okay? Why are you telling me, and how did you get this number? Plant manager goes on to say that if I can't diagnose and fix it over the phone, he needs me on a plane to him now. Again, why are you telling me, and how did you get this number? Plant manager: I know you designed this system, and this is the number X sales rep gave me for tech support when you took over from XYZ Inc. So I explained that I don't work for X sales rep. I also don't work for XYZ Inc. anymore. I haven't been involved in the industry at all for over half a decade. This is my private number, and it's my day off from the unrelated job I have now. I don't owe anyone anything. Turns out ex-sales rep has been charging them a hefty annual fee for the right to ring my number if they have a problem. Guaranteed service, 24 hours a day, 52 weeks a year. Plant manager even has my private address on the service agreement he signed. And while ex-sales rep has been pocketing the money all these years, probably the best part of a decade, the original system has continued to soldier on with basically no maintenance until something went kaput today. Plant manager is simultaneously horrified, bust a blood vessel angry and hideously embarrassed at being taken in by ex-sales rep. Going from memory, I tell him how to check various standard things that might have gone wrong and what I can remember of the error codes. But I don't have the documentation, the program, the service tools, etc. Oh, and this is 100% not my problem. He takes all this with surprisingly good grace, apologizes, and rings off. First thing Monday morning, I ring XYZ Inc. I've kept in touch enough to know that new boss has since been promoted to managing director, so I asked to speak to new boss. No, I don't care if new boss is busy. Yes, this is a matter that requires their immediate personal attention. Yes, I did used to work for you. Of course I'll hold. New boss is surprised to hear from me, and even more surprised when I tell him who rang me Sunday morning. Since ex-sales rep never had my private number, let alone anything like my address, even new boss didn't have any reason to know that. Both new boss and I are pretty convinced that ex-sales rep must have gotten it from my HR file somehow. More than embarrassing for XYZ Inc. This is the kind of confidentiality breach that can result in criminal charges, as well as being straight-up fraud, and a very clear violation of the terms ex-sales rep got that business from them on. And not a good advertisement to any customers in the industry that XYZ Inc. still do other types of work for. New boss promises to investigate and get back to me. About a day later, I got a written apology from XYZ Inc. New boss has personally investigated, including speaking to ex-sales rep, and while they're not telling me what they found out or accepting liability, I can rest assured that this will never happen again. It didn't. And the next time I saw some of my ex-colleagues at the pub, all their gossip was about a particular longtime employee who'd suddenly decided one Monday lunchtime that they needed to resign immediately and clear their desk the same day, losing all their redundancy entitlement in the process, probably worth 9 months' salary. And yes, that employee would have had access to the HR files. I never bothered to dig deep and get the gory details, but I understand that ex-sales rep wound up on the receiving end of some large bills for consequential loss from plant manager, sell your house in a hurry size bills, as the more palatable alternative to being sued for fraud. And then had to close his business because that kind of news spreads really fast for some reason, and people stop trusting you to service their machines. Hey guys, thank you all for watching video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.